Fantastic. Jade is going to help us out here today during the webinar, and she's also going to be responding to your questions via the webinar questions box to the right of your screen. So as you go through the webinar today, go ahead and pop your questions in that questions box, and we're going to be reviewing those questions at the end of the webinar altogether. Now, I know sometimes the webinars are tough because you have this disembodied voice on the computer, on the phone, so we thought we would introduce you to our facilitators by showing a picture. So this is me, Robin Bell, and here is Jade Hampton from the Customer Success Team. Jade, we are looking kind of awesome there.
I love the suits.
We do have matching suits, as you know, of course, we always do for the webinars, right? Ha ha ha. Just kidding, of course. We're trying to see if you're paying attention. Here's the real Robin Bell and the real Jade Hampton. We're still looking good, though. Good lighting, right? We'll have to work on the matching suits, yes. But I think it helps sometimes to know who's talking since we're not using our webcams here. All right, let's look at our agenda for today. We're going to do a brief overview of the billing process, make sure we all understand what that looks like. Then we're going to review our common questions or issues and how to resolve them. And then we're going to have Q&A. So that's it, pretty basic. So first things first, let's make sure we understand the process. The first thing that usually happens is we do some work so that we can bill our customers, right? Once in a while you might pre-bill labor, but typically we bill after the work has been performed. So we enter timesheets, we enter those expense reports, and that's the work that has been performed. So that's the first thing. Then that work gets approved by supervisors. Oops, let's go back to the approval. Supervisors and or the project approvers, and after all the approvals, it's in a locked or extracted status. And while I'm talking here, this may be a great opportunity if you like this little graphic, go ahead and grab a screenshot of that with your cell phone as I'm talking through it. This presentation will also be available to you within a week in the Knowledge Center, but if you like this one, now's a great chance to take a screenshot with your computer or on your cell phone. Okay, so we did the work, we approved those time and expenses. So they're in locked or extracted status, and now that means that they're available for posting. So we're going to perform the billing and revenue post, and that sets up those items that are ready to be billed. Once the billing and revenue post has been completed, we're able to create customer invoices. So this is on the Uninet menu as Add Invoices. After we add the invoices, we have an opportunity to take a look at those, review them, maybe make some edits before completing the invoices, and that's the system terminology, is complete the invoices. After you do this step, you'll be able to print these invoices or email them from Uninet directly to your customers. For those of you not using Uninet Financials, you would extract those completed invoices and send them downstream to your accounting system. If you are using Uninet Financials, no extraction is necessary. Once completed, in a completed status, the customer invoices are now going to show up on the accounts receivable aging, and they're also available for customer payment processing. So that's it. Hopefully you had a chance to nab that graphic if you wanted to, but it will be available in the slides within a week on the Knowledge Center. So in real life, not everything goes perfectly all the time, right? Well, at least not in my real life. I'm not sure about you guys. There are times when things aren't really working exactly as we expect them to. So we need to be good detectives and figure out or diagnose what's happening and why, and then remedy the issue with system configuration changes or maybe even a process change. So let's look at our first scenario. I imagine every one of us has had this issue at one time or another. I know I definitely have. The user believes that they have set up ready to go to create customer invoices, but can't seem to make it happen. What do you think could be the cause? We have a question for you to answer. So Jade, I'll ask you to launch our first question, and then please take a moment to respond with what you think is the best answer for that question.
So our first question is, what are possible reasons that a user could not create a user invoice? A, the project does not have Generate Uninet Invoice checked. B, draft invoice exists for the same project. C, user does not have the correct role to create invoices. D, the user has the correct role but no organizational access. Or E, all of the above.
All right, so we'll give you a few moments to complete that.
We're nearly there, 80% voted.
Okay, let's go ahead and show the results.
All right. The question was, what are possible reasons that a user could not create a customer invoice?
Wow, everybody selected the same answer. You guys are so smart. All right, thank you, Jade. We'll go back to our presentation here, and yes, the best answer is E, all of the above. We have a lot of smart people on our call today. Now, if you had selected any of the other answers, obviously that's not wrong, right? Those are all correct, but E is the most correct answer with all of the above. So let's take a look at some of these. So the first thing I always check, especially if this is a newer customer or project, is to see if we've told the system that we want to generate an invoice. So here we are on the project profile, and you see I have a billing menu item on the left. So we click on that billing menu item, it opens up to the billing setup for that particular project, and you see right near the top here, we've got a checkbox for generate Uninet invoice. If this box is not checked, the system will not let us create an invoice. So that makes sense, right? We have to tell the system that we want to create invoices. The second response, B, there's a draft invoice already existing for that project. Makes sense also. We don't want to put time and expenses on a draft invoice, then have them be available for creating another invoice. What if both of those invoices were to get completed? Now we've double billed the customer for the same charges. So the system will save you from yourself, or save me from myself too, and not allow you to create a customer invoice if a draft invoice already exists for that project. Answers C and D had to do with roles and access. Now, assuming you have one of the roles that can create invoices, which would be system administrator, billing administrator, or P&R administrator, as you see here on the person profile, you also need to have access to the organizations in order to create invoices. So just having the role isn't enough. You have to have org access as well. So for example, our billing manager here, Sandy Ego, has the billing manager role, but maybe she can't create an invoice. So we can check her org access by using the organization access menu item on the left. So here we can choose for Sandy to access all or selected organizations, both for the project org, which is the customer, and the owning org, which is our internal organization that owns the project. For the billing manager role, project, meaning customer access, Sandy only has selected access, so we may need to add a few more customers so that she can successfully perform the duties of her job. Sandy Ego. All right, let's look at our second scenario. Now that we know why we weren't able to create invoices and we've remedied that situation, we would next probably review the invoices before completing them. In review, we discover something that needs to be adjusted. Is this possible? Jade, let's please launch question number 2 and see what our attendees have to say on this one.
Okay, question number 2 is, can invoice information be changed on a draft invoice? A, yes, all invoice information may be updated. B, no, you must delete and start over. Or C, yes, but only select fields may be updated.
All right, so let's go ahead and show the results of that, please.
All right, so we've got a bit of a split across all of the answers.
All right, there we go. Sorry, must have been my connection here was being a little wonky. All right, so yes, we do have a bit of a split there, do we? Most everybody said C, only select fields may be updated. And we had a few other folks say A or B. So let's take a look and see. Can invoice information be changed on a draft invoice? C is correct. So great job, you guys. Yes, we can make changes to a lot of fields, but not absolutely everything. Certain things are going to stay the same. So let's take a look at that. So here we have a draft invoice, meaning the invoice has been created but not yet completed. We have a lot of data here. You can see I've got invoice number, invoice date. We have bill to information. Look, this one's going to CEO on right away in Washington, D.C. Huh. I'm sorry, I cracked myself up. I don't know if you guys are cracking up, but I'm cracking myself up over here. And we have a lot of information on the summary, you know, depending on our invoice format that we've set up, we have a lot of great information, project code, bill through date, due date, all of those great things. So let's see what we have here on the left. We have a menu that gives us some options if we want to make some changes. So you can change much of the basic information using that setup menu item on the left. By that I mean you can change invoice number, invoice date, payment terms, and so forth. You can see that those fields are open and available. They're not grayed out on the screen. And we also have additional tabs where I can change contact info and some other information on the fly. What's not changeable, we can't change anything around the customer or the project information. You know, maybe specific billing information that came from the project billing setup, such as the payment terms or contact information, but you can't change the project code itself or the customer information. I can also change details of the invoice if I need to using my other menu options. Let's say there's a dispute on labor for a certain date and I don't want to bill that until it gets resolved. I can click on the T&M labor, whatever type of contract this is. You can see I've got, you know, options for cost plus and fixed price as well. And I can defer that labor until, you know, whatever the issue is resolved. And that's going to pop back up the next time I try to bill for this project. So you've got many, many things that are changeable, just not absolutely everything. How about this next one? I want to email and print invoices all at once. Is it possible to do this? Jade, if you would please, let's go ahead and launch question number 3 and see what our attendees have to say on this one.
You got it. Question number 3 is it possible to email or print customer invoices from Uninet in bulk? A, no invoices are printed or emailed individually. B, yes, you may email or print invoices in bulk. C, printing is available, but emailing is not. Or D, emailing is available, but printing is not. Okay, let's take a look at those results. Oh, we've got quite a split going here.
Oh, yes. All right. So the majority of you said B, yes, you may do this, but everybody else is not so sure. So let's take a look and see really what the scoop is here. So is it possible to email or print customer invoices from Uninet in bulk? Yes, the majority was correct. You may email or print invoices in bulk. So let's take a look at our screens. So very, very easy, this one. When you go to your criteria under the invoicing and posting menu, under list invoices, you see you have options to email and or print one or more invoices based on your selection criteria. So maybe you only want to do it for one particular customer or something. That's up in your, a little further up on the screen, your selection criteria. The default is to pull only invoices that have not yet been printed or emailed, as you can see here with the checkbox. But if you need to email or print something again, of course, click the checkboxes above that, and the system will allow you to reprint or send those emails once again. So you basically are just going to choose your criteria and then hit the button on exactly what you want to print or email and hit the list tab and go. That's it. Very, very easy. Wait. I got to get the easy button on that one.
That was easy.
Hope you're able to hear that. Okay. All right, on to the next one. How should I make an invoice correction? Inevitably, I can speak, and things don't always go smoothly, which is why we're here today, right? We're trying to figure out how to remedy things. So what if I've created and completed an invoice, but now after that, I find something is wrong? So should I void? Should I uncomplete? When should I use one versus the other? So Jade, let's take a look, please, at question number 4.
So what is the best way to make an invoice correction? Is it A, void, B, incomplete, C, it depends on the circumstances.
Okay, let's check it out.
All right. So we've got, again, a bit of a split here.
Yes. Okay, so we had someone say void, which I'm a tough love kind of a girl. I like that one. And then we have 15% on incomplete, and then most everyone said it really depends. So my answer to that one is also C. Even though I am a tough love kind of a girl, if you've ever been in any of my classes or talked with me, I like to, make sure we do everything by the book and we follow the rules and all that, but sometimes we do want to do an incomplete. So this is Parker Poster. He's our AR poster, and he deals with the customer payments. And he says you should use the void functionality whenever possible in order to keep the audit trail. So the void is going to take that original transaction and basically reverse the debits and credits, right, for whatever your posting date is. And you can see that in and out in your general ledger. So that really keeps the audit trail intact. Unpost functionality is as if the original transaction never happened. So as you see on the screen, Parker Poster agrees with me. Just because you can doesn't mean you should, especially if you're not using Uninet financials and you unpost, you've probably already sent that completed invoice information down to your downstream system. So you could muck things up significantly there. All right, next one. So 1034, 1035 format. So I do business with the government and I need to supply the specific format. Does Uninet support this? Jade, let's go ahead and please launch question number 5 and see how many of our webinar attendees are using this format.
Okay, the question is, does your company need to provide invoices in 1034, 1035 formats? You can answer yes, no, not right now, but I may need to in the future, or you've never heard of 1034, 1035.
All right, the responses are flying in. Give another moment for our last 20% of folks to go ahead and respond. All right, I think we've got everybody that's going to respond. Let's take a look.
All right. So we've got a bit of a split between all of the different options.
Okay, so some, almost half, 40% are using them and 17% are not. Some people might need to, and some people say, I don't care, I've never heard of it, I don't need it. So that's okay. We're going to let you know. We're not going to go super deep into it, but just kind of let you know where you can find the information. So in the interest of time, instead of going through the entire process, I am showing you the Knowledge Center page. So our Knowledge Center has a step-by-step guide to help you get going with the 1034, 1035 formats. Just go to kc.uninet.com. Hopefully you already have that bookmarked. That's kc.uninet.com. And I just typed 1034 into the search field, and it came up, first thing that came up was this quick topic. And so you can see it gives a great overview and then the step-by-step instructions here. So that's how, if you do need it and you're not already using it, you'll be able to find the information there, and certainly is supported by Uninet. Our next scenario, this is a common question that we hear. What if I need to bill my customer for something that's not part of the billing and revenue post? How can I create a so-called blank or $0 invoice? So Jade, if you would please, let's take a look at question number 6.
Okay, question number 6 is, how can you create a $0 invoice using add invoice criteria? A, select the option to add $0 invoice. B, select the option to include projects without unbilled data. C, select the option to include projects with draft invoices. Or D, it is not possible to create $0 invoices.
And we'll give you some time to think through this one and respond on what you think is the correct answer on this one. And you're not getting demerits or anything if you don't get it correct, so don't panic. We're not going to hold it against you. And we'll give you just a few more moments. We still have a few people who are still in the process of responding. Okay, let's go ahead and show our results, please.
Okay, looks like most people selected option B.
But there's a pretty good split there, though.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, great. Thank you, everyone, for your participation. So how can you create a $0 invoice using your add invoice criteria? The correct answer, as we saw 50% of our respondents there, is to select the option to include projects without unbilled data. On the add invoice screen that you see here on your screen, you can see down near the bottom you have a section called List Options, where you would select the option to include projects without unbilled data. Okay, so you would check that checkbox, and then when you click on your List tab, you'll see you have a couple items there that have a 0 or this, blank in the unbilled column. So you would select whichever one of those, or one or more, to generate a blank invoice. So once you generate the invoice, you see it has a $0 amount. So by penciling in to edit this, remember we looked at editing this earlier, you can use the additional items menu on the left to create an additional item to add to the invoice. So additional item types need to be already defined in your admin setup. As you see here, we're adding an additional charge for $100. Then when you save that and view the invoice again, you'll have your invoice for $100. So that's how you can add charges, create a blank invoice basically, and then add charges or discounts to that. Good stuff, guys. Let's take a look at this next common question. How do I bill my customer for multiple projects on the same invoice? So Jade, let's please launch question number 7.
Okay, how can you invoice a customer for multiple projects on one invoice? A, within the project setup. B, edit the customer invoice after creating it. C, using the invoice format setup. Or D, it's not possible to combine multiple projects on one invoice.
I hope you like these interactive formats. If you can certainly put those kinds of comments in the questions box as well for us, if you like this or don't like this. Okay, let's go ahead and take a look.
All right. So it looks like we've got a pretty heavy split between A and C.
Okay, and a few on D. All right, great job, you guys. Thank you, Jade. So the correct answer on this one in invoicing a customer for multiple projects on one invoice is A, within the project setup. So let's take a quick look there. So for each project, you can see I have my project profile open. We would go ahead and set up the billing attributes from the billing menu on the left, and we looked at that in some of our prior scenarios also. When we click into the billing menu, as you can see here, the setup tab gives us options to invoice this project as a standalone, or we can group projects together by identifying a lead project or contributor projects. Projects designated as lead projects are going to drive information for the group of projects, such as invoice formats, invoice number formats, payment terms, and so on. So the setup fields on the contributor projects are disabled because they're going to inherit the characteristics of the lead that are defined on the screen. And you can tell on the list invoices screen if a project is grouped. How do you do that? Well, you see this little black diamond next to the invoice number. That tells you that that is a group of projects on one invoice. So it will show you the lead project in the project column, and then you can view all of the contributor projects by viewing the invoice details there. So definitely doable in Uninet. Oh, look at Debbie Deposit here. She looks like she's at the end of her rope. Help, she says. I'm new to the company and our customer has asked to see different things on their invoices. Where can I find information on changing invoice formats? Jade, can we please launch question number 8?
Yes. How many invoice formats does your company use? A, just 1, B, 2 to 5, C, 6 to 10, or D, 11 or more? Ready for the results,
Okay.
Robin?
Sure.
Okay. So how many invoice formats does your company use? We've got a pretty good spread here.
Okay, so just 1 is fine. If 1 will do you, sometimes your customers request specific things, or you want to use a specific for a particular group of projects or customers or something. So that's why we would see, you know, several in that case. So most of you have you're in the 2 to 5 range. So no matter how many you have currently, thank you, Jade. Let's check out our resources to help our newbie user here. So if it were me, I usually have 3 places that I would go to find the answers. First, the Knowledge Center. So the Knowledge Center has an unbelievable amount of information regarding many, many topics and in various formats such as FAQs and webinars and quick topics, all of that stuff. So kc.uninet.com, if you don't already have that bookmarked, it's a wealth of information. That's probably the first place I would look. Next, we have the help documentation. So as with the Knowledge Center, just type invoice formats into the search field, and help docs also provide a wealth of information on whatever topic you're looking for. The difference between the help docs and the Knowledge Center, or as we call it here, the KC, difference between the help docs and the KC is that the help docs are a little more technical probably, and then the KC is going to have things more like best practices, common configuration settings, and so on. And then lastly, you have your own system, right? If you have a test environment, you should be able to test out some new formats on test data, and then you could practice before you put the real thing into motion. So our newbie user has many, many resources to help her find the answers. So that's the end of our scenarios today, and I would like to see if we have questions. I'm sure we do. I promise to try to answer your questions, but if it's something that I don't know, quickly off the top of my head, or maybe we need to do a little digging, I may ask Jade to take a note of it, and then we'll be sure to get back to you following the webinar with an answer. I know a lot of stuff, but I don't know everything, so I will do my best to answer your questions, and if we can't, we'll get back to you. So how's our question box looking?
We have some great questions here, Robin. Our first question is, we're using more than one invoicing format for our invoices in Uninet. How can we insert a page break between invoice formats when printing?
Oh, goodness. I should know the answer off the top of my head to this one. I believe it has to do that you do it on the PDF, but can we please take a note to follow up with that one to make sure that that's the right answer?
Absolutely. Okay, let's see. Our next question is, will Uninet allow preparation of forms 1034 and 1035 along with an invoice in our usual format?
Yes. Yes, you should be able to do both of those. So if you want to keep a copy in your usual format for you, but because you have to send to the government in 1034, 1035, yes, you should be able to do both of those things.
Okay. What would you use a $0 invoice for?
Just like the example that we showed, if you need to invoice the customer for something, let's say there's an additional charge or sales tax or something that didn't come through the billing and revenue post. So the billing and revenue post is going to post your time that was entered, your labor, and also any expenses for that project. But if you had something outside of that you needed to bill the customer, you could create that $0 invoice and then add it as an additional item. So it, we're billing you for $100 because you were cantankerous. Okay, maybe not that reason, but for whatever reason you have.
Okay. Is it possible to change the billing through date on the invoice?
Yes, that is one of the fields, and let me go ahead and pull up our system here so that I can show you some of those things. So if I go to financials, and you can see this, right? Let me make it a little bit bigger for you. Does that help? That's a little bit bigger?
Yeah, that's better.
Okay. So let me see what draft invoices I have here. Status draft. And I don't have any draft invoices. All right, let me, I can uncomplete one so we can make it editable, hopefully. Oh, shoot. Okay, sorry, I don't have my data in the system but if we look back at our presentation, you can see that the field is open to make changes, and that was one of the earlier ones, wasn't it? Oh, sorry. My PowerPoint's not cooperating either. Okay, yes, the answer is yes. You do that on your screen, and then you can see on your invoice, if I could get it to come up. I'm sorry, my test system does not have easily available data for me to show you that. Your initial place where you would do that information is the through date here on your Add Invoices screen. And if that didn't answer your question, please just pop in another, what wasn't answered, and we can get back to you on that.
Okay. Can you post revenue to the general ledger prior to posting or completing invoices?
Yes, the revenue is posted as part of the billing and revenue post. So let me come back, and if we go back, sorry, on our cycle here. So the billing and revenue post is a debit to unbilled and a credit to revenue. Then when the invoice is completed, it is a credit to unbilled, effectively wiping that out, and a debit to billed or accounts receivable. So your revenue will be posted, and again, based on some of your system settings, if you are on fixed price and you're saying, recognize revenue when billed or recognize on a schedule. So some of that may be depending on your, your contract type and your system settings there, but the revenue is posted as part of the billing and revenue post, which is before, as you can see here, the completion of the invoices. Hopefully that answered your question.
Thanks, Robin. Do you have to let me start over. Do you have to extract an invoice, and when would you do it?
If you're using financials, you don't have to extract an invoice. So the invoice extraction was in place before we had Uninet financials, so that you could take those invoices out of the system and send them downstream to your accounting system, and that was an indicator of which ones had already been sent. So if something was in, it was completed, but you hadn't sent it down to your accounting system yet, because you don't want to send things twice, right? So you would extract everything that was completed, and then it has a status of extracted. Now you know, I've already sent that down to my accounting system. I don't want to send it again and double count it. So that's if you're not using financials. If you are using financials, I can't think of a reason why you would need to extract them. I guess you could if you really wanted to, but there's really no need, because as soon as they're completed, they're available for customer payment processing, and they're also available to view on the accounts receivable aging. So the question there is, if you're using financials, you don't need to. If you're not using financials, then yes, you want to do the extraction process to send them to your accounting system.
Excellent, thank you.
Sure.
If you use the incomplete invoice, do you lose the invoice number, or does it maintain the same invoice number?
So if you do the incomplete, it is going to maintain the same invoice number. It's just going to go back into a draft status.
That was easy. Is there a way to have the system not use the invoice number until the invoice is put?
I'm sorry. Scratch that. Let me show you if I can. Again, I don't know that I have any. Oops, that was draft. Let me see if I have any completed in the current month. No. Because the incomplete wipes out the transaction as if it never existed. So I believe that it doesn't allow you, the numbering isn't going to go back and pick up that number again. So let's say I uncomplete number 969. It's as if we never created 969. So the system won't go back and reuse that number. It's just going to start again with, 974 or whatever. Let's see if we can do this. No, sorry, my demo data is, I've already got payments for that, so I can't uncomplete it. So it's not going to go back and use that again. Now, whenever you go in to edit an invoice, you could type in that number again if you wanted to, but I'm not sure you want to do that. Just because you can doesn't mean you should. So uncompleting wipes out the transaction as if it never existed. So if I uncomplete 974 here, the system is going to just keep going 975, 976. 976 is not going to go back and use that again. Good questions, you guys.
Yeah, they've got some good ones in here. Let's see. So the next question is there a way to have the system not use the invoice number until the invoice is posted? In other words, we've created an invoice, let's say it's invoice number 1, and the project manager rejects the invoice because it should have additional costs included. We delete the invoice, post the additional cost, recalculate revenue, and recreate the invoice, but it is now invoice number 2. We never completed number 1, and we still want this to be number 1.
Okay, so if I create an invoice here, okay, so now I delete this, and this is invoice number 0184, okay? So let me delete that. Let me go back and add invoices again. Got my dates. And let me generate that invoice again. You can see it's now 185. If I edit this and go to the setup menu item, I could make this 184. I believe the system will allow you to do that. Let's see. Yes, it will. Yes, so you can, but you need to know what that deleted invoice number was. It's not going to go back and use that number again. Once the number is generated, the system is going to create sequentially the next number the next time. You could, as I just did, if you know the one that you deleted, you can go back and use it again here if you need to. Okay?
Okay. Scenario. You generate a draft invoice, but you need to delete it and regenerate. The invoice number that was associated with the original invoice is not reused. A new invoice number is generated. Is there a way to fix that?
That's what we just did that. Yep. So when I came back here, let me delete this one. So this was 185. I went back and changed it to 184. Let me do that again. I'll delete that again. So if I go to add invoice, and I've got 2 invoices here. Let's use this new one, the space station one. So I generate an invoice for the space station project. It's number 976, and I delete it. Okay, so I'm deleting 976 for the space station project. Now when I go back in, I need to generate that invoice again after I've done whatever I need to do. And it's now, it picks up the next number 977. I can edit this invoice, go to my setup menu, and I can change that back to 976, but I would have to know what that number was. But yes, you can do that.
Awesome, thank you. Can you edit a completed invoice without uncompleting and deleting subsequent invoices?
You cannot edit a completed invoice.
That was straightforward.
Nope.
Okay. When you create an invoice, but you write off instead of deferring the amount, oops, sorry, my screen just jumped. When you create an invoice, but you write off instead of deferring the amount, how can you reverse the write-off?
Reverse the write-off. So you want to reverse you can't reverse it in an invoice, to my knowledge. You would have to do that with a journal entry. And that, I think that would, let me see. Let's make a note to do a little digging on that. Off the top of my head, I don't believe it can be done in the invoice, because once you write it off, it's written off and it's done. You know what I mean?
Right.
So let me do a little digging on that one to see if there's any other way to do that besides doing a journal entry.
Okay. So made a note of that. Let's see. If you need to keep invoice numbers sequential, do you have to go into the invoice number format every time you run into the issue of having to delete an invoice and create a new one?
Yeah. I guess my question will be, what's the driver for the sequential invoices? Because you're not, the data that was on those invoices goes back basically into what I would call a staging area, so you can create another invoice for it. So the data itself is not going away. You're still going to create an invoice for that even though you deleted the original one, right? So my question would be, we're not posting you know, that stuff, or we're not completing it. You know, the impact on the GL, you've already debited, unbilled, and credited revenue with your billing and revenue post. By completing the invoice, you're resolving the unbilled amount by crediting it, and you're debiting your AR. So if I delete an invoice, does the number really matter because I'm not impacting the GL with it? That would be my first question. But if there's some, you know, regulatory thing or something like that where you have to be in sequence, again, maybe I would say let's do a little digging on this one. I don't know off the top of my head a better way to do that rather than go back to your invoice numbering format and changing that starting point. But let's please, Jade, make a note to get back to them and we can see if there's an easier way to do that.
Absolutely. I'll make a note of that now. Let's see. One more question. Can we prepare a credit memo to reverse charges for expense vouchers? Or do we need to create negative expense vouchers and then post and invoice the negative expenses?
So, sorry, tell me the first part of that again. Can we create a credit memo
to reverse charges for expense vouchers?
I guess you could, as you'd have to do some setup and do it as an additional item to do that credit. I would probably more recommend doing the negative expense voucher, but I believe in one of our recent releases that we are able to do that a little more easily now. But I haven't done it personally. But let's take a note on that one also to get some more details because I know we have a better process for doing that now.
Okay.
Where you should be able to import the negative of that expense report rather than trying to do it through the user interface. I believe that that is now an importable item where you could go and run that through.
Okay.
But we'll get to the details to whomever asked that question. We'll get back to you on that one for sure.
Okay.
Easier than it used to be.
Okay.
Lots of great questions.
I know, we got into the nitty-gritty here. So if there are any additional questions, now would be a great time to post them up, or you can shoot an email to myself or to Robin for a follow-up. And for those questions where we need to get more details, we will do our research and get back to you. But those are all of the questions in the chat right now.
Absolutely awesome. Awesome, awesome. All right. So great questions, guys. Thank you so much for all of your engagement in these webinars. It's wonderful to get these questions and try to help you answer them. Sorry, I couldn't answer absolutely all of them, but we'll make sure that we do and get back to you. You see on your screen the Uninet University schedule. Just, you know, a little plug for my team here. You know, come on out and come to our new location and the great new building that we have and join us for some wonderful classes. One of the best ones, I would say my favorite anyway, Foundations of Reporting, because it really is they're all good. What can I say? But that's our schedule. You can get there on uninet.com under services. Certainly if you have any technical questions or having something that you feel isn't working right, contact support for the technical questions. Otherwise, please contact your customer success manager and you can contact them directly or send questions to csm@uninet.com. And if they can't answer your question, right away, they'll certainly get you the help that you need for any of your questions. And of course, our recorded webinars are going to be available on the Knowledge Center, or in the Knowledge Center, where you can go and listen to my voice again for an hour if you want to, and hopefully kind of reinforce some of this stuff. So I want to say thank you to Jade Hampton from our CSM team for all of your help during the webinar today. Thank you, thank you. It was awesome.
My pleasure, Robin.
And thank you to everyone for attending, and just let us know if you have any additional questions or follow-up. Thanks so much for joining us.